Welcome, everybody, to Greater Life, Greater Impact. I'm your host, Janet, and I'm excited to talk more about sovereignty. As you well know, we've been talking about spiritual sovereignty all of 2023, and it's such an amazing topic. I think so many of you have had some profoundly spiritually awakening experiences as we've gone this journey this year together, discovering more about ourselves on the path of spiritual sovereignty. But for today, the topic that I really wanted to focus on today in regards to spiritual sovereignty was oneness, or some people call it the indwelling of God or the indwelling of Christ. So I want you to be thinking about that. Some of you have done some extensive study along the lines of the indwelling of God, the indwelling of Christ, and you may have some things you could contribute through your studies on that topic. And so I would welcome that and invite it. Feel free to share. The other thing that I want to talk about today, if there's time, is I would love to hear how your journey of spiritual sovereignty has gone. I'm going to open it up to some thoughts and ideas and questions that maybe you could ask yourselves in regards to taking some inventory as to where you feel like you are in all of this. And then, as always, my disclaimer is go get your own truth. I am not your guru. I am not even your teacher, really. That is God's job. That's God's domain, and that's your responsibility. But I am here and I am willing to share some of my experiences with you, have some discussion, and hopefully that will ignite in you an opportunity to take your personal journey of spiritual sovereignty deeper, because you know where you're at and God knows where you're at. I don't. Okay, so we've just given the disclaimer. I want to talk about the indwelling of God. You can tell when a person has experienced that indwelling of God, or some people call it Christ consciousness, or just the indwelling of Christ, or the divine. It doesn't matter what lingo you use. It's a process by where you become so intertwined and so intimate with your experience with the divine that it no longer feels like you are separated or separate from God. It feels as if your inner voice and God's inner voice now seem like the same voice. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the indwelling of God or Christ. Somebody sent me something really profound this week on TikTok, and it was a gentleman by the name of Gary. I think it's Knightington. I think it's Gary Knightington. I'd never heard of him before, but he said some really interesting and profound things as he was talking about the cost of peace. When you see people who are in a state of peace and spiritual sovereignty, these are not his exact words, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing. He said, peace is expensive and it comes at a great price. And we often don't talk about what that price is to individuals. We just look at people and we think, wow, they're glowing. They're sovereign. They're spiritual. They're peaceful. I want to be more like them. But we often don't address what is the cost of becoming a being that is a person who's in a state of inner peace, where there's an indwelling of the divine within them. We forget that there's a dark side to these things, right? It's not easy to get to that place where, even though bombs are going off all around you and the world looks like it's turned against you and upside down and there's chaos everywhere, and that being that you're witnessing in your world that looks like a peaceful being, we forget the dark side of what they had to come through to get to that level. We forget that people in most of those circumstances have left behind physical financial, familial, family stability, financial stability, physical stability, in order to reach that state of inner peace and sovereignty. We forget what it really costs. So in order to obtain this intangible thing that we call inner peace, mental health, emotional health, whatever you want to call it, I would add to that spiritual sovereignty. I would add to that self-connection, self-confidence, self-awareness, your godly connection, right? These all come at a great cost. And some of you I know have experience in what it took for you to get to a place of inner peace or inner sovereignty or self-awareness or self-connection. Often if we want that kind of connection in our lives, we're going to be faced with decisions that will cause us to have to let go of the old self and the old ways and the old world and the old paradigms and patterns and realities. And that can induce perceived pain when you have to let go of even people, family, culture, ideals, beliefs, mentality. Oftentimes we're faced with the decision to have to let go of that in order to attain inner peace. And that can be a really difficult way to step into the higher self. Another thing that this gentleman said was, we often forget that many tears have been cried and shed night after night over the having to let go of these things, leaving behind something or leaving behind someone in order to choose you. And I know that each of you has experience with that, what that feels like in order to be in that catch-22 where you have to do either the unthinkable or the illogical in order to choose you, in order to choose inner peace, in order to choose your connection with God. We sometimes in these moments, we miss out on family experiences. We miss out on what the rest of the world is enjoying and doing and perceiving. We miss out on the lives of our loved ones because we have to leave some of that behind. And so there are there are going to be gaps in your relationships when you start to seek the path of spiritual sovereignty, inner peace, self-connection, self-awareness, and self-love. We don't always talk about what comes with that and how that feels and what the cost is. Many people are going to have thoughts and feelings and ideas and opinions about you. They're going to judge you. They're going to say it to your face. They're going to say it behind your back. Casey says, "God, I'm late. I'm here. Just let me line these children out with their school lessons." Oh, I'm glad that you came. I'm glad you guys sacrificed so much to come to these sessions. So those of you who are just now jumping on, we are talking about what is the price of inner peace? What does it cost to pursue self-connection, self-awareness, spiritual sovereignty? Because we often don't talk about that side of it because it's kind of a dark side of it. We don't talk about how it feels to have other people oppose you, reject you, put their opinions out onto you, because you had to choose you. And so there is pain that comes with that, but there is also a liberation when you learn how to surrender and let go. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage to do it. And this is true for every human soul path. Every human soul path is going to come at that cost of having to let go of things that you once thought you would never be asked to let go of. So the next time you see somebody who does this is what this gentleman said, the next time you see somebody who does glow with that inner peace or that inner self connection, and they look confident and they look courageous and they on the outside, then you don't forget the price that was paid for them to be in that space. Anybody have thoughts on the indwelling of the God presence within us? What are your thoughts? What do you have to add to the conversation? Perhaps you might want to add to the subject of what is the price that is paid for having that kind of next level experience rather than just going along to get along in culture and in society. Oftentimes we bend over backwards in culture and society because it feels safe. Oftentimes we bend over backwards to please everybody else in our families and in our social circles because that feels safe. And it's scary to step out into the unknown and be you. Feel free to unmute if you have things to share, or you can just drop it into the chat box. I'm going to give you just a minute to think on that. Maybe even if you're willing to share personal experiences. I see that. Anne, do you have something to share?
Yes, and I don't have my video turned on because I love doing this, by the way. When you're on, I'm usually hiking in the woods and I'm listening to you.
Awesome.
So I always feel like I'm taking you and everyone else through the woods with me. But I just, the thought that came up for me instantly was, we talk about the price we pay for peace. And I'll just share the first thought. I'm not saying it's a truth or not, but it just felt like, isn't it about our perception? So in other words, if we are going through challenges or we use words like suffering, I mean, does it still come back to perception? How am I perceiving? Is this really an opportunity to learn and grow and expand my awareness? Or anyway, it's more of I'm sharing this, hoping that you or someone else can clarify that or have a thought about it.
Oh, you could totally do that. You're a guru in my life. But yes, I agree with what you're saying, that it is about perception. That's exactly what I feel like I'm trying to lead up to, is that yes, it comes at a cost. The cost is learning to surrender and let go, and then stand in the confidence and the clarity and the courage to act in alignment with who you really are, not with what you've been conditioned to believe that you are. And sometimes letting go of those things that we thought we were. There's perceived pain that comes with that. But I think what ultimately happens when you learn to let go of the need to suffer about it, you find greater levels of self and strength and clarity and, all the things that we really are seeking for.
Right. And that was perfectly said. And I was also reminded of, that mantras and what we believe, then we experience in our lives. And so I think a part of that is also trying to shift all the years of beliefs and patterns and all of these things that we were fed, whether it's through parenting or culture or religion or whatever it is, that I feel that sometimes it can become so overwhelming. And so I can share what I do, which is I bring my awareness down to my heart center, which for me represents Christ consciousness. And when I bring my awareness to that place, it gives me a moment I can breathe without being overwhelmed by all the other chaos. And it gives me an opportunity to tap into myself, like who I am. What is the journey I want to take? Am I in alignment with my path? But it's hard to get there when you're caught up in the monkey mind.
Yeah.
So,
and it is easy to get caught up in the monkey mind. And like you said, suffering is really just a perception of a story that may or may not even be true.
Right. And if you want to take that a step further, talking about Christ, I mean, Christ suffered, right? And then we were all able to have some kind of freedom through his process of suffering. So I imagine if we were to speak to him and say, so what were you thinking when you were suffering? You know,
Yeah.
he might say something like, well, I didn't see it as suffering, you know.
It was training.
Yeah,
Well, and the thing is, he didn't suffer necessarily. This is my personal belief. So you
yeah,
guys go get your own truth on this, but this is my personal belief, that he didn't suffer so he could rescue everybody. He suffered to show us, hey, my suffering is your suffering. My path is your path. You're going to do what I do, what you see me do, and even more than that. Um, and like you said, maybe he would say, I didn't see it as suffering, but a conditioning, definitely a process that has to be gone through. You know, I had this conversation with somebody last night. We were talking on the phone and we were talking about the principle of meekness. Being meek is not weak. It's actually a condition. It's where you've allowed yourself to be conditioned to deep inner strength. And that comes at a cost. I mean, you have to pay for that. You can't just say, okay, today I'm going to be meek and I'm going to have deep inner strength. You have to pay for that. If you want to become a bodybuilder, you can't just go to the gym once and then go, okay, I'm a bodybuilder. Everybody look at my body. You have to pay for that. Right. So there is an exchange of energy that takes place when if you want to attain a certain level of anything, whether it's spirituality or sovereignty or inner peace or bodybuilding, whatever it is that you're seeking to grow into or to attain. So we were talking about the principle of meekness, and I shared with her, I heard somebody on YouTube a long time ago talking about meekness. And back in the early days of the Greeks and the Romans, they used to train these wild stallions. They'd go out into the wild and get these stallions that were wild and powerful, and they would train them, and they called it being meeked. And they'd train them to the degree that that horse, this powerful beast, could be so interconnected to its master, to the person that had stewardship over the horse, that when these leaders would ride into battle and the horse was in full on charge, if that leader of the horse or the master leaned down and whispered into its ear to stop, that horse would stop on a dime or turn and go in another direction, or that it would go in the direction of just wherever its master was looking. It was that interconnected to its master that they called that being meeked, because they were in sync, they were one. So I think that has to do also with this indwelling, this concept of the indwelling of God, the indwelling of Christ. If we want that path, if we truly want to become as Christ is, there's a process of conditioning where we have to learn how to be meeked through it. And I do think that this sense of what we would call suffering, right, is a part of the cost that is paid for these higher levels of self-awareness and self-connection and spirituality. Andrea, go ahead.
Everything that you said, I can totally resonate with completely, because that's where I've been the last 5 years as well. I had to be willing, literally, to give up and surrender every relationship that I knew in order to know my God the way I know him now.
Yeah.
And when you talk about missing out on things, yeah, there was a family vacation that happened and I chose not to go, and I still honor that completely. Even though now at this point it's hard to look back at those pictures and know my kids weren't there and I wasn't there. I made the right choice because it was the choice for me, and it was the choice to walk with God, literally. And the indwelling is so much more than than one can imagine, in my own opinion, like in my own experience, to be able to realize that really the only reason we do suffer is because of the belief system we've been taught in this realm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can stand from that perspective and realize and literally be in neutrality,
Mm-hmm.
then you walk with peace regardless of what happens around you.
It's beautiful. It is a beautiful walk. I love what you said. That's perfect. Thank you so much. We do have some comments too in the comment box. So let me go to that. I loved what you said also, Andrea, about the process of surrender. You used the word surrender. And I think there is definitely an element to that that comes with, that's part of the cost, right? Is learning how to surrender your ego's will, or what your body thinks it wants, to the highest will, which is what God wants for you and your higher self wants for you. So surrendering a lower level state in order to achieve a higher level state. Okay. Someone says, in your opinion, would you consider the light of Christ synonymous with Christ consciousness? I'm not sure how I feel about that. Somebody else might want to weigh in on that, but I guess for me personally, what my answer would be to that is, yeah, there are elements of the light of Christ involved in the Christ consciousness, but I think the cost of getting to a level of Christ consciousness where we are interdependent with Christ is bigger than just having the light of Christ, which is your intuition and your, what do you call it? That inner voice, you know? So yeah, I think that's an aspect of it for sure. Casey says, I have a lot to say, but I'm not sure it makes sense when I verbalize. However, we're so worried about impressing society that we forget to be our true, authentic selves, which causes us to eventually forget that part of ourselves. Through healing, we can find that again, and society's opinion starts to matter less. I love that. That's so true. And I'm able to love more genuinely without strings attached. Therefore, I'm sharing Christ-like love. I'm not even sure what that is that you're asking. Again, random thoughts. Yeah, exactly. Andrea says yes. Surrendering the lower allows you to expand into the lighter way of being. Yeah. And that surrender is kind of a difficult thing because we think that we have to cling to what makes us feel safe and included and loved and validated and valued. And really those things, what we start learning as we start surrendering is that those things are already present inside of us. They don't need to be gifted to us from the outside world. And so how we get tested in that is to have people turn on you or turn against you or put their opinions all over onto you and tell you that you're crazy or you're wrong or you're, whatever. And you being in a place of confidence and clarity to the degree that it doesn't matter what other people say about you or do to you. And that can be difficult depending on what level you're experiencing. I mean, think about the Jews during the Holocaust and what they endured and how much they had to surrender. Casey says expectation versus reality. Yeah, that could be a whole nother class just talking about that. Okay, I'm going to move forward. If you guys have other comments or things that you want to interject, feel free, as always, just unmute or raise your hand or put something into the chat. But I want to talk a little bit, I want to shift gears a little bit from that indwelling, that inner peace and the cost, the price that we pay to access that. Let's talk about taking inventory then on our own levels of spirituality and spiritual sovereignty. How can we take inventory on this stuff? So as a spiritually sovereign being grows and develops and attains higher levels of consciousness and self-awareness, it might be harder to discern between God's voice and their own inner voice because they become like I said, interconnected. They become one. And I think that's a level of oneness that molds the two into one, right? Like when I had a series of near-death experiences where I popped out of the body, and lots of people have had these kinds of experiences where you just pop out or pop away from the body and you get perspective on a different level. And when I stepped away from the body for that short period of time, I realized that I felt like I stepped into the oneness. I don't know if that makes any sense. I felt like I stepped into this expansive void, and my experience or my reality was that I am everything. Not only am I one with everything that exists, I am that. I could look over at a blade of grass and say, I am that blade of grass, or that grain of sand, or that mountaintop, or that ocean floor, or every star in the sky. I am that. And when you start to perceive yourself as if you are that, you are all things. For me, my experience has been that's how you connect with your own inner divine I am. And I think it's one of the reasons why Christ, or God, who is omnipotent and omniscient and in all places and all things, can say the things that he says in regards to that. Being the same yesterday, today, and forever, being one. So, as you know, those of you who have worked with me privately, one-on-one, or in my healing groups, you know that that's one of the things that I love to do the most, is help you to tap into your divine inner I am. Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to start asking some questions, because sometimes when we step out on the sovereign path, you may be tempted to ask questions like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm deceived? Because those things will surface as you start stepping out and taking action on what you feel is clear for your inner path, as you're seeking inner peace, you're seeking sovereignty, you're seeking that indwelling of God within you. Sometimes we're going to be tempted to say, what if I get this wrong? What if I mess up? In those times, you're going to be required to find a way to return yourself back to center, back to home, back to standing in the confidence and the clarity and the wisdom and the guidance of your inner soul. I think for me, that's one of the things that I personally I've been on this journey now for a long time. I can't even put dates to it, but one of the things that I personally am seeking the most right now is inner clarity, inner confidence, and then the courage to act in alignment with what I feel that I receive from God and through God. Okay. There are a couple of questions or comments. Let me just address those really quick. Surrendering the lower allows you to expand into the higher ways of being. Yeah, that makes me think about the Adam and Eve story. They're placed in a level of reality that they were given, right? Whatever level that is, you can call it whatever you want. Here they're placed in this level of reality, but they're being told to participate in something that's out of the bounds of this reality. So in order for them to participate in creation and become parents, earthly parents, they had to literally transgress the laws of this lower reality in order to step into what they were told to seek. So it doesn't make sense. Sometimes, when you're on your spiritual path and God says, hey, here's where you are, here's the rules of your reality that you're in right now. These are the bounds. But what I really want for you to do is this up here that's in a totally different paradigm. And so often it's going to require that you step out of this paradigm, out of these bounds and these rules and these constructs of reality, You have to transgress lower laws if you're going to seek to participate with higher laws, if that makes any sense. And so you are most certainly, be assured, you are going to be shamed and shunned and judged, and people are going to barf their opinions up on you, and people are going to call you crazy, and they're going to say things like, God would never ask you to do that. You must be wrong. Because I hear this all the time. God is a God of order. So therefore, God operates within the paradigm of my belief system. And you hear that a lot. But there's not one of us on this earth that knows God so well that we can predict what God would or wouldn't do or say to you. Not one of us is that amazing at this point. We're still learning. We're still progressing. We're still growing. We don't know all things at this point. I'm speaking for myself. And so, yes, when you're on this spiritual journey and you're feeling the pull, you're feeling the nudge, you're feeling prompted, guided, whispered, whatever to go in a specific direction that doesn't make sense to everybody, that maybe goes against family and religion and culture and society and rules and programs and norms and how the world in society has been conditioned to be and to act and to see things. Maybe God's going to guide you to see things from a different lens or from a bigger perspective or from in a new light. And then you'll be asked to act on that, on what you're learning, so that you can learn through experience, so that it can become ingrained in your soul through this physical mortal tabernacle. That's tough learning. That's tough learning. So if you feel like you're in that place of everyone hates me, people think I'm crazy, I'm being shamed and shunned and blasphemed all over, welcome to the club. Because that's a part of the personal journey of the indwelling with God, learning to hear the voice of God through your own inner voice, but also having the courage and the confidence to step in and act upon what you receive as inner truth. And you know what inner truth feels like. And you know when things feel just off a little bit or when something doesn't feel right. So let's take some inventory today. Here are a series of questions that I would love for you guys to ask yourselves on this journey of sovereignty, spiritual sovereignty, and seeking to attain that inner peace, or at least maintain that inner peace. I believe that we do need to take inventory from time to time because, like I said earlier, you're going to be opposed, you're going to be confronted, you're going to be accused, you're going to be blamed, you're going to be shamed, and all that stuff that comes at you from the external world projecting onto you, it's going to create some self-doubt for sure. Plan on that. And as you plan on that, then you can go inside and take an inventory as to, okay, where am I? What do I know? That's the first question I would ask myself if I'm taking a personal spiritual inventory of myself. I'm going to ask that question. What do I know? What do I know that like my soul just vibrates with the truth of it? And maybe you can journal that out or write it down or put it somewhere in a tangible form so that you can be resolute in the knowing of that. So that at least is a piece of the puzzle you don't have to question ever again. And as you start writing some of these things down, hey, this is something that I know because my soul tells me so. Okay, that's number one. Question number two on your inventory. And you guys might come up with other questions too. If you do, drop them into the chat or speak it out loud, share with me, because these are just things I came up with. But there's probably gaps. Two, what do I believe? So there's a difference between knowing something and believing something. So what do I know? What do I believe? Journal that out, write it down, get familiar, get comfortable with the difference between just something that is a belief to you or something that is an absolute knowing. You know that you know that you know. You know, for me, in my experience, there were things in my life that I thought were absolute, that I thought I knew, because the conditioning was so deep. The programming was so deep. I was told these things. I was told to believe these things. I was told to say I know these things. But I've had to really take inventory on all those things too. And it's not just from a religious perspective. It's just from the perspective of how was I raised? What was I taught? I've had to kind of strip those things down personally and then pick up the pieces and say, okay, now, which of all of these things do I know that I know that I know? And how do I know them? Okay. Number 2, what do I believe? Number 3, what do I feel? What does that knowing feel like? What does that belief feel like? Are there elements to the knowing that maybe I could ask deeper questions on? Are there elements to my beliefs that I could ask deeper questions on? Why do I believe that? How did I come to that belief? Why is that important to me? And why is that important to me? And why is that? And that, and that, and that, and keep going down the rabbit hole. Number 4, how do I know these things? How did I come to know these things? Did I come to know them because someone told it to me and taught it to me, or because I have witnessed the conditioning of it in society and culture and religion and family and environment? How do I know these things? 5, do I know them with my heart, or do I know them with my mind, or both? Do I know them with my heart, or do I know them with my mind, or both? If both, that's awesome for you. 6, what is the source of this learning? Where did the learning come from? Did it come from programming, or did it come from a presence or an essence that you felt download and distill upon you? Just that inner knowing, that inner peace, that inner understanding, that feeling that surpasses all understanding. 7, what are the fruits? What are the fruits of acting in alignment with my knowings? If I have a knowing, or even if it's just a belief, when I act in alignment with any of those things and I start learning through experience of those things, what are the fruits? And again, you can't judge fruits based on whether or not chaos comes into your life or you get wrecked. The fruits are whether or not you are able to come to a place of inner peace and love and joy, regardless of the external chaos, regardless of that stuff. So, oftentimes when we see people sacrificing much to attain an inner knowing or an inner peace, we look at their lives and we say, wow, they really suffered a lot, or they went through a lot, or look at the terrible things that happened to this person. Those must be bad fruits. No, those are not the fruits. Those are just effects. The fruits are whether or not that person was able to find their way back to a place of inner peace and love and joy and gratitude and forgiveness and healing in spite of the external world. That's how you judge the fruits. Andrea says it takes courage to continually step into the unknown. Yes. What else? I feel like I'm missing all of these. Yeah. Katie says, it's written in Matthew 10:22, all men will hate you because you believe, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. John 15:19 says, if the world hates you, keep in mind it hated me first. If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. That's so true. As it is, you do not belong to the world. I have chosen you out of the world. Like Anne said, perspective. We have been chosen to do this work because of who we are and the mission God has for us. Yeah. Or just our own personal, inner path or inner mission. That is the mission God has for it. That was well spoken. Thank you for sharing those scriptures. I highly recommend that you guys go do some research and study on meekness. Go study up on the indwelling of Christ. Go study up on these two references that Katie just shared. Thank you, Katie, for sharing that. Let's go back to some of the. Oh, no, let's go to Mike, who has a comment first. Go ahead.
I totally, I was donating plasma, so I've just been listening, but I wanted to interject on one of the things that you said of what is something that kind of thing. And, in 9 days, I celebrate 1 year of sobriety. And that's legitimately almost after 27 years of addiction.
Wow.
And I know that addiction is going to become my superpower. And that my whole life growing up in religion and stuff and being told that I was scum of the earth and all that kind of stuff, like, I know now that I went through all that stuff so that I can relate to people. And I can now, like in the last year, things have been insane. I now work at a drug and alcohol treatment center, where I'm able to take the knowledge that I have and share it with others and touch lives every day I wake up. And so it's just, I know that my Heavenly Father or my higher power has forgiven me for the not so nice things that I've done in my life. And, I'm not the whole eat, drink, and be merry. I'm not going down, like, it's not that, like, yeah, I had my agency and all that stuff. But now I've been able to come about and stand in my own knowledge and say, you know what, there's more to life than what meets the eye. And I'm super grateful for this session today because I have felt so empowered over the last couple months. And honestly, like I've told you numerous times, like I am so grateful for the voice that you've given me. Or not that you have given me, but you have allowed me to uncover, and find. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that. That makes my heart so happy. And yeah, I'm happy to hold this space. I'm happy to open up the conversation and the dialogue, but all of y'all on here, you all are contributing in such a powerful way to the up-leveling and the expanding of the consciousness of this planet in ways that you have no idea is rippling out. And Mike, your story is so inspiring to me because you are the epitome of overcoming the flesh and stepping into those higher levels of self-mastery, self-awareness, spiritual sovereignty, and then putting a voice to it and sharing where you've been. And you're doing it from a place of humility. That's meekness. And meekness is so empowering and powerful. It's a place of power.
Really like my whole life, like I've been shameful of myself, and now like it's like I'm a whole new person, like because I don't have a problem going and saying, you know what, yeah, I've done some not so kind things and I'm not a perfect person. There's days like, I mean, yesterday I was not the nicest person to some people, and that's okay. Like, I can acknowledge that, but it's just the freeingness of being able to use my voice and say, yeah, you know what? Like, I used drugs from the time I was 12 until the time I was 40, like, and, but then to be able to, like, give the backstory of it, and be like, people ask me, would you go back and change things? And I'm like, if I knew that it was going to bring me to where I am today, absolutely not. I wouldn't change anything about my past because I am perfectly okay with who I have become.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the feeling that it is. And like this weekend, like I had some amazing conversations with people from church. It was conference weekend, and we were, I mean, I can't wait to show up to church. I was bummed that it was conference because now I got to wait another week to show up with these dreadlocks. And I just want to see what people like, how people react, because I'm the guy that rolls up on Fast and Testimony in shorts and a t-shirt, and I go up there and bear my testimony. And I'm like, what's up? Like, but it's awesome to like be able to have conversations with people that are like, we're so glad that you're here, and I'm like, well, thank you, like, I don't do it to be obnoxious. I do it because it's like, Christ didn't care what you showed up and were wearing, like, he doesn't care anything. He just cares that you woke up and are trying, like, he doesn't care what color your toenails are or what color your hair is, or, like, that's not, he loved everybody. And that's what we need to get back to.
I wholeheartedly agree. I just love everything you said right now. And it's interesting. I love watching you, Mike, because I knew you before when you were in the thick, when you were in the thick of it all. I knew you then. I knew you were powerful too, by the way. But then I've been watching you as you've been on this journey of self-mastery and self-connection and self-discovery and connecting with the God within you. It's been nothing short of inspiring to watch. And I can see the power emerging in you, and it's inspiring other people too. I know that I know because I watch people who are also observing and witnessing you in your life. And so thank you for being bold and brave and committed to this process, because I think it's what it does for other people as they look on from outside is it gives them permission to go through the same thing too. We're not here on the planet to worship humans. We're here to learn the inner path. We're here to learn the way through the inner path. And so I appreciate every one of you that's on here is going through that. And you all have your own journey and your own stories that you're having to let go of. So I just honor that in every single one of you. Thank you, Mike, so much for that. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you so much. I love you all. Everything you guys share is just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. And this is how we do it. I have a framed picture on my wall that says, you lift me and I lift thee, and together we ascend forever. And that's what we do as we come into the connection of the inner peace and the inner self and that indwelling of God within us. Now we're ripe. We're fully ripe. And like you said, Mike, like now you're in this place of power. You have this superpower to go out, and you can tell that the fruits are good because it instills in you a desire to serve and to give and to have compassion and empathy for others. That's how you can tell that you're in alignment. So thank you. And I honor that in each and every one of you guys. Let's go back to this inventory a little bit and keep asking these deeper questions so that we can know how to proceed and move forward on our own inner path. 6 was, what is the source? 7 was, what are the fruits? So how can we look over our lives and like like as we were talking with Mike just a minute ago, what are the fruits? Do I feel more confident and clear and courageous and strong and humble, right? And am I willing to exercise that courage in stepping out into the world, stepping out into the unknown? What are the fruits? Number 8, where in my life do I need more clarity? So maybe I have these little pieces. I feel like God has given me this information. I'm acting on the information, but maybe there's parts and pieces of that that are still unknown to me that I still have yet to discover. So you could ask yourself the question, where in my life do I need more clarity? And then that gives you a great starting place to go back within, access that inner peace, connect with the God self within you and connect with God and ask those questions. Take those inspired questions and say, hey, I need some clarity on this. Could you please show me? Could you please help me discover the deeper levels of truth on my path? Number 9, what are the confirmations? So as you're seeking for clarity and you're getting these little bits and pieces and you're acting, you're taking that leap of faith and acting in the direction of what truth is coming to you or how truth is being revealed to you. What are the confirmations? What is the witness that this is a truth? How is God? How is the universe? How is spirit? How is nature, the world around you? How is it showing up? Have you noticed a shift inside you or around you? Have your relationships changed? Has your life experience changed? Have you noticed there's a difference inside of you? So what are the confirmations? Question number 10 in your inventory. Where am I now? Where have I been? Like Mike said, he had this journey of discovery, the space of pain and seeking for himself through addictions. Well, guess what? It worked. He found it. He found himself. And now he's growing and developing and expanding in that. So where am I now? As opposed to where I feel like I've come from on my path. And can you give yourself kudos, please, for wherever you find yourself now in exercising the courage to be you, to act in alignment with the truth of your soul? 11, question number 11. What do I need today? So where have I been? Where am I now? What do I need today? What do I need to know? What are there some things that I need to actually set in motion by doing? What do I need today? I also think, so that was my 7 questions for doing your personal inventory. I also think it's important that we check in on our feelings, because our feelings will tell us a lot, especially if we're in a space of centeredness, inner centeredness. You go within, you connect with your higher self, you're centered, you're grounded, and you're not allowing your feelings to rule you, but you're at least observing them and witnessing them and noticing them and allowing your body to process through those things. It's important to feel your feelings and let the body process that stuff. And then come back to center, come back to the I am, and move in that forward direction from that vantage point. So last of all, oh, we've got a few more comments. Hold on, let me just bring us up to speed. Someone said, amen, Mike, woohoo. It's amazing seeing Mike sober. So proud of you, bro. Celebrating you. Way to go, Mike. I bet you have a ton of compassion for others and yourself. Acknowledge your success and celebrate you, Mike. Yeah. Anne says, my motto as well, wouldn't change anything because of what I've learned and who I've become. Absolutely. This is learning. We're in school. I'm going to be celebrating 16 years clean, and this is Casey. 16 years clean, and I can say I still don't regret what I went through because I genuinely believe in my testimony, which is healing and growth is possible. I'm so proud of you, Mike Rivers. Judy says, yes, thank you, Mike. Lots Lots of kudos to you, Mike. This is really, really great. And this is what we should be doing for one another. Kudos to you. Good job for standing in your truth. Good job for going against the grain, not to just go against the grain, but to stand in self confidently. Someone says, Katie, or yeah, this is Katie. Yes, Mike, keep pressing on. My husband is in rehab now, and I'm an overcomer of addiction. All glory to God. Keep it up, Mike. So proud of you. Have a blessed day. Okay. You have blessed me today, it said. All right. So let's all get together for a minute and do a gut check. Let's do a gut check as we're stepping out in our own personal experiences, in our own personal journey of sovereignty, self-discovery, healing, the discovery of our connection with God and how we relate to God. I think it's important once in a while, as we do our inventories and ask ourselves these deeper questions, to do a gut check. As some of you know, I've kind of the last couple of weeks was really kind of brutal for me. There was a lot of things coming down the pike all at once, a lot of big shifts, big changes, some big trauma, lots of big voices speaking out against myself and others, and that can be a lot to process especially when you feel like it's all coming down on me at once. I have all of these major shifts coming down on me at once. So as we do our gut checks, and as we tap in and we get centered, and we use our tools to navigate through some of these periods in our lives that can be like, really? This is like overwhelming right now. Really? Some of the questions that we can ask ourselves in the gut check process is, do I care what other people think of me as I'm going through this evolution, transformation, awakening? As I go through my transformation, my evolution, and my awakening, do I care what other people think of me? Do I need to have validation, affirmation? Do I need to have people agree with me? Do I need to have people like me, love me, approve of me more than I need to know myself? There's a good gut check to ask yourself. Do I need the accolades of what the world can give me over and above what I can give myself? Where I know that I can stand in the presence of God, right? Because if you stand in self, in the presence of God, you're invincible. There isn't anything that you cannot do or overcome or maneuver through successfully. In fact, that brings to mind, I had a beautiful conversation with my dear friend, Jennifer Saunders, who I'm at her house. And we were talking about an experience that she had on a river trip, a kayaking river rafting trip, class 3 and 4 rapids, and how terrifying that was, and how much fear they had to continually overcome, and just the bombardment of rapid after rapid. I mean, real like finger clenching experiences over and over, and you just get pelted over and over and over. She told me at one point there was a time where she got thrown from her kayak and was in the water and was just being pelted over and over and over. Like, I can't get out of here. I can't breathe. I'm going to drown. And going through all the fear of that. But then what she said, I think, was really profound, in that she says, something interesting about the river is that the rapids come, and sometimes they come one after another, after another, but there's always stillness and there's always peace after them. Like, they don't last forever. There's always peace and stillness after them. So as we do our gut check, we can remind ourselves, yeah, things are hard right now. Things are difficult right now, but there's always going to be stillness and peace that comes. I shared your story, Jennifer. I shared your story on the rapids and how there's stillness after every rapid that comes. So I'm going to have Jennifer come on, did we decide Halloween? I think we're going to do, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about fear. On Halloween, she's going to come on. We're going to do a joint class together. And then we have a really special personal invitation for you guys to step into some fear. I'm personally going to do it. I'm scared already, out of my mind. But yeah, I've been learning a lot about fear and how important it is for us to face it and to experience it and to work our way through it.
Janet, one thing I wanted to add real quick with the whole rapid analogy.
Yeah.
So there's actually, after being a river raft guide all summer long, I learned that in the heart of the turbulent water, when you get down below the surface of the water, there's stillness. And it's, in the pocket of the holes that you're going through that create a rapid is the stillness. And so it's kind of like life, if you find even in the heart of whatever you're going through, like if you find the stillness in whatever you're going through and focus on that, it's actually kind of rewarding.
Do you know what that reminds me of, Mike? In fact, Jen said, yeah, I didn't get deep enough to experience the stillness part. But, what that reminds me of is tornadoes. When you think about the destruction and the chaos that comes in the wake of a tornado, but yet in the center is nothing but stillness. And I've experienced the center of a storm like that before, and it's almost eerie, but the stillness is so deafening and so peaceful too at the same time, that often it's a reminder to us that we don't have to always exist in the chaos and swirl around it. We can go within into center and be in the center of the storm instead of, like what you talked about, being in the chaos of the rapids, learning how to go deep inside or deep down and dwell in the stillness of it as the chaos bubbles and swirls around you and jostles you around, because life will do that. Life is a lot like a river, and it will do that. So thank you for the analogy. I really love it. You need to come on this experience. Oh my gosh. Please come back and tune in on Halloween Day, and we're going to have an awesome opportunity to talk about fear, why it's important for you to face your fears. And then also we're going to give you a very, very special invitation to participate in an experience that will be life-changing. I mean, once you've faced great fear, you're never the same. You become a superhero in your own life. So, okay, gut check. Here's another aspect to gut check is, do I need others to reciprocate love back to me in order for me to get to that centered place and that place of inner peace and that God dwelling within, or can I do that on my own? So as we're talking about this gut check experience, I want you all to take your awareness and your attention and just go within. Slow down your breath. And just drop down deep into your body and let the stillness come to you. And let yourself sink into the stillness, that inner quiet space inside your body. Think about your heart. Think about going deep inside of your heart. And as you breathe into that, and I walk you through more of these gut check type questions, I want you to breathe into the stillness of your center and just let that carry you to the answers of these questions. Am I seeking for accolades? Am I seeking for approval? Am I seeking for validation or agreement from others? Or am I truly walking my soul's truest path, unafraid, unashamed, with clarity, with confidence, with courage? Or am I seeking for the validation from outside? Another gut check. Here's another gut check. Am I truly following my inner path? And you may have to ask those questions of what more clarity do I need in order to step out on my inner path? Question number something. I don't know what number I'm on, but here's another one. Am I acting in alignment with my journey, my path, the next right steps in front of me, my intuition, my connection to God, and my own personal agency and sovereignty? Are my actions in alignment with that stuff? Our own unique steps on our path are set forth in our own personal plan, and everyone's plan looks different. No one can expect that there would be a cookie cutter process to this, because everyone's unique and different. We're all in different places. We're all in different growth levels. We're all experiencing different learning for different reasons. And so it's vital that you understand how to access that inner voice, the inner path, with courage, confidence, and clarity, and then act on it. Our own unique steps on our path are set forth in our own plan and cannot be governed or granted by anybody but God and your higher self. God is the only real authority over what your steps on your path are going to look like. And your higher self, really, that's their one. So gut check. And the last 3 gut check questions are: where do I stand with me? Where do I stand with God? And this is more of a comment than a question. It's more of a statement than a question, but as all of you well know through your own experiences in your own lives individually, there's always going to be parts that we don't know. There's always going to be parts that we don't want to know. And there's always going to be parts that we don't need to know. So what are those? The parts that you don't know, you don't want to know, and you don't need to know. So those are just some additional aspects for doing that gut check as to where you're at, where do you fall on your life path. And lastly, I'm just going to end with this because we're over time. It's 10:10. There's always going to be risk. There's always going to be huge cost. There's always going to be choice and free will. There's always going to be consequences and fruits, so that you can discern what your choices actually have been. There's always going to be fruits. So it's important that we look inside at what is your greatest fear. Because oftentimes your greatest fear is pointing you in a direction of something of greatness, higher levels of greatness within you. What is your greatest fear? Some of you are afraid that you're going to be wrong, you're going to be deceived, you're going to be judged, you're going to screw up, it's going to ripple out and cause pain to other people, and that might make you feel afraid to move. But I invite you, encourage you, as you do this inner work and you do the gut check and you do your inventory on your own spiritual journey of sovereignty, that you take the time to look objectively at where you're at and where you're seeking to go. Weigh the options, choose yourself, choose love, choose to align your mind and your heart at the same time, and take baby steps. You don't have to do it all at once. Lastly, this is my last comment for the day, and then I'm going to let you guys go. Everyone should feel safe enough to ask questions. Everyone should feel safe enough to be asked the questions, because you're going to be asked questions, and you're going to have to stand in your own courage and confidence and clarity in order to ask those questions that life is going to throw at you. So thank you guys for being here. Casey says, yep, all of it. Fear, it consumes me. Good. You need to tune in on Halloween Day, because we're going to talk about that. We have so many golden nuggets to share about fear and why fear is such an integral part of this process. It really is an integral part of it. And so understanding fear and taking those steps to learn how to conquer fear is also, I think, one of the most vital parts of our journey. So thanks for sharing. Thank you guys for being vulnerable. Casey says, what does the problem look like solved? That's a great question. You guys can add that to your list. I cannot use this question enough since learning that. Fear is my biggest obstacle right now. Yeah. Okay, good. Tune in. All right. Thanks, you guys, for being here. Go watch the replay over on YouTube, Greater Life, Greater Impact, and tune in next week. Same time, same place. Talk to you later. Love you guys. Mwah. Bye.